welcome back to my channel. So I know that I've been postponing this video for such a long time. I don't know why, but this video is going to be finally about my dogs. I do have two dogs. Here is one. Her name is Coco. Her middle name is Chanel. My mom thought of that one, so her full name is Coco Chanel. And then I also do have another dog, and her name is Ruby. Let me go ahead and grab her real quick. And here is little Ruby. She is the smaller one of the two. And she's also very shy. She doesn't tend to like people all that much. Coco, on the other hand, is very, very social. She loves other people. She loves to be the center of attention. So there is quite a difference between the two. So pretty much this video I wanted to talk about my dogs and how I got them and the crazy stories that have already happened by getting these dogs and just their personalities and everything. First off, I guess I'll go ahead and answer a couple like minor questions. They are sisters. I have two girls, Coco and Ruby. Ruby also does have a middle name. It's Ruby Rose. Anyway, the kind of dogs that they are is Ruby is a Yorkie mix. I'm not too sure what she's a mix of. And then Coco is a Shih Tzu and Yorkie mix. So that's why she has a little bit of bigger of body frame and how her face looks a little bit different than what a Yorkie typically looks like. So originally when we were getting dogs, we weren't planning on getting two dogs. We were only planning on getting one. Originally how we came about getting these dogs, and specifically these dogs, is my family, we grew up with a whole bunch of dogs throughout our lives. We've had two dogs previous to these. And pretty much my mom didn't want to get another dog since my dog had recently passed away. But since our family has never been without a pet, it kind of felt weird to not have any dog or pet or anything. So we decided, or I decided, that I wanted to get another dog. But my mom did have a couple of rules for me, so saying it couldn't shed. It had to be very small since my mom does have a phobia of bigger dogs. It had a whole bunch of restrictions that we had to go over, so literally the right next day that my mom told me all the requirements of getting a dog again, I searched up everything and I tried to figure out what dog would be the best fit for all of those rules and like what our family would be good with. And I knew that me and my dad really wanted to get another dog, so we were constantly looking at other like dogs, like saying, ooh, maybe this is a good breed, or ooh, look at this one, things like that. So originally we were only supposed to get one dog and we ended up with two. So there's a crazy story that goes behind that. So we finally decided on what kind of dog that we wanted to get, which is a Shorkie. So what people mostly don't know what a Shorkie is. So a Shorkie is a Shih Tzu mixed with a Yorkie, which is what Coco is. So they tend to be a little bit bigger, so about the size of a Shih Tzu. They don't shed at all, and they do not grow in size. So Coco is about like 2 years old now, so she's not gonna grow any much from what she is, and you can tell that she is pretty small. So after deciding on what kind of breed, it was time to figure out where we could find a Shorkie. And most of the time you don't find them in pounds or anything like that, because those are the first to go depending on what kind of breed that they are. Shih Tzus do not last at all at pounds, or Yorkies are typically smaller dogs because most people pick those up first. So we ended up finding a breeder, or my dad found a breeder that did have Shorkies. So we contacted her and she sent us a couple photos of what the puppies were looking like since they were just born, or like a week born already. So we took a look at the pictures, and then there was about 7 to 8 pictures, I want to say. So me and my parents looked through the pictures and we decided on at least 2 that we wanted to see in person and to like look at and then decide from there. What ended up happening was me and my dad went on our own to go meet the lady in person, to go and take a look at the dogs and figure out if we wanted to actually get these dogs for our family. So we ended up driving all like a half hour away, and then we went to go look at the dogs. So we met up with the lady and she brought out 2 dogs. Ironically, one of them was Coco, and then the other one that we also chose was Ruby. This is where the story kind of takes a turn and weird, crazy things happen. So we end up looking at the dogs and I end up choosing Coco because she seemed a lot like, not healthier, but she seemed a lot bigger, so a little bit more like fitting with our family kind of thing. So I ended up choosing Coco and we ended up taking her home that day, which I didn't know. I guess my dad did. So we ended up taking her home and everything. We brought her home and she was so tiny. She could literally fit in like the palm of your hand. I'll put up some pictures and like some videos of when we got her and like how she looked and everything. But she was so tiny. So we ended up getting her. We introduced her to the family and everything. My mom was like, what the heck, why is it so small? My little brothers were freaking out. I have 2 younger brothers. They were going crazy over her. So we had her, and the next day we ended up, me and my mother and a couple of other family members, we ended up going to LA since we had to go searching for an outfit, I believe, for one of my family members for a big event that was coming up. So I went with my mom, and then my dad was gonna go to work, but he was gonna come right back after. So Coco was about like a couple weeks old, so she was good enough to leave on her own. So we did leave her at home, and we did put her like in a fence, like a giant fence, and her bed, her bowl, food, everything. So we did have that happen. So everything was good, and then my dad was gonna come back later just to check up on her, make sure that everything was fine since she was still kind of a puppy. So we ended up leaving, me and my mom. We went to LA and everything. We did everything. Everything was fine. And then we were coming back. Well, on our way back, I ended up getting a call from my dad saying, hey, Coco collapsed on the floor and she's not waking up. So in my head, I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. We were just like, I was like in disbelief. I was like, I've only had this dog for a day. How could it just collapse like out of nowhere? Like, what did we do? What happened? Like, what could have possibly happened to her? So I'm going through all of these like things in my head. So my dad ended up taking her to the vet and pretty much just getting everything settled. And then I finally arrived at the vet, and I was just like I was still in shock because I wasn't sure like what was happening or anything. So I was just like freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, what are we gonna do? And then they one of the vets ended up like letting us know, saying like, hey, can we talk to you in the office? And in my head, once he said like, oh, can we talk to you in private, that part messed me up so bad. I was like, oh my god, she passed away. Like, I was freaking out. I was like, no, my dog is already dead and we just got her. Like, I was literally thinking that I was the worst owner possible. So anyway, we went into the room and everything, and then he started explaining to us that she had this form of disease that is really common in Yorkies and everything. And we're like, how does she have a disease? And like, yeah, we read up on the disease, but it's not like common to find them in Yorkies, or like it wasn't common to find them in dogs in general, but it happened to be more common in Yorkies. So we were just like, what are you talking about? It has a disease and it needs like surgery and it needs all of this, and that they had to keep it overnight. And then we were just like, wow, we weren't expecting this at all. Like, what the heck? Like, whoa, like, ugh. So she ended up staying overnight. So we said like goodbye to her, and then we ended up leaving her there for her treatment, or just to monitor, making sure that she was fine from whatever had happened. So the reason that she had collapsed apparently was because she was hypoglycemic, which is when dogs need sugar. It happens in people too when you happen to need sugar constantly throughout the day. So we didn't know that that was the case with her, since we never really had like that kind of breed of dog before. So we ended up learning that out. So once we got her back, we gave her sugar every once in a while, and like a couple times throughout the day, just to make sure that she was fine. And she was fine when she got home. She just tended to sleep a lot, so we were just like, oh well, she's a puppy, maybe she just happens to sleep a lot, like that's fine. So it happened for like about a week. She was just sleeping. She always wanted to be asleep. She like always covering her face in her bed, like digging underneath, just because she wanted to be like alone and like just asleep. Like it was crazy to see how much a puppy slept. And I was like, well, maybe she's just very tired, like maybe she just doesn't have a lot of energy since she's so small. So we were like, okay, but then this also seems to be like happening a little bit too often. Maybe we should take her to the vet just to check her out, making sure that she was okay. So me and my mom were getting ready and trying to make sure, like, oh, we had all the paperwork. So we were just to take her to vet just for a checkup, just to make sure that everything was okay. And then I remember I just gave her water and everything, and I was gonna leave to go grab everything so that we can go. And then I don't know why, but like I remember I was talking to my mom about some paperwork and everything, and then I looked straight down, and then I saw Coco, and I just stared at her, and then all of a sudden she started like thrashing around, like her body started shaking and like freaking out. And in my head, I don't know like what happened, I just like snapped into action. I was like, oh my gosh, she's having a seizure, like what the, like where did this come from? So like I picked her up really fast, wrapped her in a blanket, tied her down like with like her paws around and everything, since you're not supposed to have anything near their mouth. And I yelled at my mom. I was like, oh my gosh, she's having a seizure. We need to get out. We need to go to the vet, like now. Luckily, the vet was about like 5 minutes away, so it wasn't too far. So really quick, wrapped her up, picked her up. We went in the car and everything, and we drove off to the vet. On the way to the vet, she started foaming at the mouth, and I started freaking out because I've never witnessed a dog having a seizure before. And as she started foaming in the mouth, she actually bit my thumb, which was my fault because my thumb was closer to her mouth, which it's not supposed to be. You're never supposed to put anything near the mouth of a dog that's having a seizure, or even person in that sense. So as that was happening, we finally got to the vet, and then I ran inside, and I was like, my dog's having a seizure, what do I do? And like they took her away, took her to the back and everything. And then I just sat there, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what's happening to my dog? Like why is all this happening? We just got her. Like again, it was all going through my mind. Like I was freaking out because I'm a huge dog lover, and it hurts you so much to see the dog that you really care about like in pain and like going through all of that. So we ended up talking to the vet again, and then he was telling us that she needed to go through surgery for this specific disease. Like this is what was causing all of that to happen. So we were just like, oh my gosh, like we can't handle this. Like so many doctor trips within just a week. Like it was crazy, and the price for the emergencies and everything was just racking up, and we couldn't handle that. So my parents made the decision, and I as well, we made the decision that we had to take her back to the breeder because we couldn't take care of her. We couldn't financially take care of her. Like that was way too much. Like it was around $3,000 per visit that we were having. So we ended up, I couldn't take her back, so I stayed with my grandparents while my parents went to go drop her off at the breeder and everything. So you could only imagine how I was. I was like so like disappointed. I was like crying all day. Like I was so like depressed and just didn't want to like do anything. I was just so sad that my dog was like sick and I just couldn't have my dog anymore because we just couldn't afford it because it was so expensive. So I stayed at my grandma's and everything, and the whole time I was just sulking. I didn't want to deal with it. And then I wasn't expecting my parents to come back with what they did. So my parents were on their way back, and then I came back through the front door. It was my dad first, and then my mom was right behind her, but she had something behind her back, like she was holding something, like if she hurt her back or something. So I came to the front door to open it and everything, and then I saw my dad. I was like, oh, like just saying hi and everything. And then I saw my mom, and I was a little confused because she was holding something behind her back. And then all of a sudden she brings out Ruby, which is my other dog, but we didn't choose her. Like that was the dog that we first saw, but we didn't end up picking her. So I'm like confused as heck because I'm like, why do you have another dog? Like, what the heck? Like, why? Like, you didn't go to drop off Coco and then pick up another one. And then my mom was like, well, she just gave her to us, like kind of like a trade, which doesn't seem right, but she just happened to give her to us. So we were just like, we were all like so confused, like, why did this lady just give us another dog? Like, we weren't trying to trade, we were trying to make sure that the other one was okay. So we ended up taking care of Ruby, and we were just like, she was so much more different than Coco was when we first got Coco. Ruby was super energetic, constantly like looking at things, running around on the floor. Like, she was so much more lively than Coco ever was when we had her. And I'll put a couple of like videos that I have of her when she was like running around, like going crazy, like a couple of pictures that we had of her when Ruby was small. So it was like we had another dog again. So I was like, okay, now we have this dog, which was Ruby, and she was a Yorkie mix. So we ended up taking care of her. Everything went fine with her, but there was also like a little thing inside of everybody that we were like, well, what about Coco? What about the other dog? Like, what are we gonna, like, we need to make sure that she's okay, like that she's fine and everything. And more my youngest brother grew super attached to her as well, and was constantly asking like, hey, how's Coco? When are we getting Coco back? Like, are we gonna see her again? Like, things like that, because he was so young. He didn't understand that we went to go leave her and we weren't gonna get her back. So after like constant like telling my parents like, hey, when are we getting Coco back? Hey, when are we gonna see her? Like, is she okay? Is she this? My parents finally like kind of like caved in to my youngest brother and was like, well, what if we had two? And at that point we were just like, but is she okay? Like, is she fine? Like, better than what she was before? So we ended up contacting the breeder, and she said that everything was fine. She didn't have anything wrong with her. It just happened. It was just a crazy, weird kind of thing, which is really strange to me, and I don't quite understand still. So we ended up telling the breeder, well, is there any chance that we can get Coco back? Since we really wanted her back, and we grew so attached to her within that week that we couldn't let her go just like that. And then we also couldn't let go of Ruby, so we decided that we would go ahead and choose two dogs. But the thing was that the breeder didn't necessarily have Coco. The breeder had sent her off to a vet technician that she knew, and a friend of hers that lived all the way in Vegas. So I live in the LA County, so Vegas is around 4 hours away by driving, so that's a very, very far, like, long time for over there. So we knew that we couldn't just leave Coco just like that, like we had to go get her back. So we came up with the bright idea that we were gonna drive all the way to Vegas to pick up Coco. So we ended up going to the breeder's house because the breeder had a favor to ask of us, as we were gonna go over there to pick up Coco anyway. She asked us, well, can you transport 6 other dogs with you as you travel over to Vegas to drop off to that vet technician in exchange for Coco? So you can take Coco, you give her those 6 dogs in replacement. So I didn't know of this, and we were just like, what, like 6 other dogs? Like, that's whole 6 puppies that we have to transfer over. Like, what the heck, that's crazy. Like, how can you just ask a random person, like, here, take these dogs and take them 4 hours away to somebody else? Like, how do you trust us like that? And I don't know, I think that's so strange. So we were being nice and we gave in, so we ended up transporting 6 other puppies with us in our car all the way to Vegas, a 4-hour drive. 7 puppies, including Ruby, who was in the back with me. And I was holding a little Shih Tzu baby that was just born in my hands with a blanket and everything, and that thing would scream at the top of its lungs, and it was like a human scream. Anyway, so we transported 6 other dogs all the way to Vegas. So once we got to Vegas, we finally, you can hear Coco over there, she's complaining about it too. So we finally got to Vegas and everything, so we gave her the dogs and everything, and then we saw Coco. And Coco looked like a whole nother dog. Like, she was so much fatter in a good way, and she looked so much more healthier, and she was running around. She was like so happy. So we were just like, this is our dog. Like, this is who she actually was after all that time. So we picked her up and we drove all the way back home. So it was a total of 8 hours that we spent that whole day just to go pick up Coco, turn around and drive all the way back home. This is what we did for those 2 dogs because we loved them so much, and it was just like crazy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was just a little bit of a story time about my dogs and everything, and we are one big happy family all together. These are my 2 dogs. This is Ruby, this is Coco. I hope you guys have a great day, and see you guys later.